Archosaurs come onto the stage in a really big way in the Triassic. But it doesn't start out with dinosaurs being the dominant group. It's more pseudosuchians and other archosaurs that are the main contenders in the Triassic. So what we want to see is why they declined, but dinosaurs really took off.
Hi, my name is Dr. Brian Curtice, and I'm one of the paleontologists here at Fossil Crates. And today, I have the unbelievably good fortune to speak with one of the most dynamic, up-and-coming paleontologists that you're ever going to meet, Emily Keeble. So without further ado, can you tell us who you are, where you're at, what you're studying?
Yeah, hi, I'm Emily. I'm currently working on, with the Dawn Dinos project at the Royal Veterinary College in London. And this project is looking at the locomotor superiority hypothesis. So we are looking to test whether dinosaurs basically had a locomotory advantage over other archosaurs. And this is why we see them flourish at the end Triassic and into the Jurassic, whereas pseudosuchians in particular decline a lot. And we're doing this by making rigorous biomechanical musculoskeletal models digitally. And we're going to plug in a bunch of stuff and see what the computer spits back out once we've done that. More complicated than that, but yeah, that's the gist of it.
So is the punchline there, you're testing stance, the erect stance versus the sprawled stance? And then are you looking at open acetabulum versus closed acetabulum?
Yeah, that's one thing. We're looking at posture, but we're also looking at things like gait. So in addition to just having the skeleton and looking at how that stands, we've also got data from living animals. So looking at the Nile crocodile and the tinamou, a small ground-dwelling bird in particular, as our sort of extant models in order to see how they're moving. And then if we can get our models to recreate their movement, we can sort of validate our extinct animal models and see if we're coming up with reasonable assumptions on how they would have moved, in addition to just the stance.
Can you talk to me about your work in the computers? Because you are a 3D digital paleontologist. Based on some of the publications I work, some amazing illustrations and fantastic. Just I don't know. You can't call them. What do you call them? Art, graphics, drawing?
Yeah, models usually, because they are basically scans of the real fossils. So CT scans and occasionally surface scans, depending on what I'm working on. Put them in the software, and then from just having those CT scans, we can separate, or I can separate out the individual bones and move them about and get a nice clear image of what this thing would have looked like in 3 dimensions, which is really cool. Something that technology has allowed us to do in the last decade or so. But yeah, it's becoming more and more of an interesting and exciting tool that we can use to study these extinct animals.
Were you always inclined on the IT side of your interest, or how did you end up in dinosaurs, and how did you merge the future of technology with deep past?
So I've pretty much always been interested in dinosaurs, but the IT side of stuff came later during my master's degree, when I was looking at small fissiophil sediments, so fissures in rocks, and then later a load of sediment came in there, and with this sediment we get these small animals preserved. Most of them are jumbled up, just isolated elements, because they've been washed in there by water. But occasionally you get something that's clearly washed in as one thing, or a large chunk of a thing at the very least. And we had one of these in it was a very, very fragile specimen. So we didn't want to prepare it out and risk losing the articulation that it had, because it would have had to be done by acid, and it was difficult. We just didn't want to risk that. So we decided to stick it in the CT scanner instead. And it came back really, really nice. And that was the first time that I got to do any digital paleontology work like properly. And yeah, it was great, and I enjoyed it. And it's just kept coming up in my work again and again. So I guess now it's kind of my thing.
That is fantastic. And you mentioned acid wash, so you've done some preparation in your time, I take it.
Yeah. So that was the first experience I had with prep. So other specimens from those fissiophils, we did use acid to prep them out, or we took these huge big blocks of matrix. I dunked them in an acid bath overnight. wash them off the next day, dunk them in a bath of water, leave that for another day, and then you come back and pick through all the sediment. And this went on, and I did this for several months before we got through all the material. And it's great. It gets you some nice specimens. I think I had over 1,000 little tiny bits and pieces to go through in the end, but you do end up smelling like vinegar for several months, it would seem.
For those that know me, vinegar is one of my most hated and loathed flavors. So, yeah, I had to do some acid wash way back in the day and discovered that it wasn't going to work for me. The smell alone was going to kill me.
Yeah, it's definitely not for everyone.
But the images, like some of the teeth that you were able to produce from that, you want to talk about some of those? What was the genus they belonged to, and
most of the teeth and most of the bones and bits and pieces that we recovered were from Clevosaurus, and a new species that we actually discovered, Clevosaurus cambrica, as a part of that. That's what the majority material was from. And occasionally I'd find different bits and pieces. So we also had some material from a dinosaur called Pantidraco. That was a very exciting day when we found 2 teeth on that, and I'd spent the whole day just picking out bone fragment number 683, bone fragment number 684, and then suddenly the next slide I looked at, or the next little chunk of matrix I looked at, there were these 2 perfect teeth. It's like, I know exactly what those are. It was brilliant, just really, really typical sort of leaf-shaped teeth. Exactly, like knew exactly what it was the moment I saw it.
that is so awesome. The very first fossil I found in the Jurassic was an Allosaurus tooth, and I hit a rock, pulled it over, and there it was. And it's just that moment of that. And I'm the first person seeing this in 150 million years, and there it is. And it's that sense of just amazing, I don't know, spirituality. I don't really know what else to call it.
Yeah, I really love that about prep, that you're the first person uncovering this and the first person to see this ever. And that's a really exciting thing for me. That's one of the main reasons I really love preparing fossils.
So you like dinosaurs as a small child as well?
Yeah. I was a dino kid. My bedroom back at my parents' house is painted with dinosaurs. Box full of dinosaur toys, all everything. I was definitely a dino kid. But my path to paleontology sort of took a wiggle. So I was like about 4 years old when I decided I was going to be a paleontologist. But from there, I had other interests, and I decided, maybe I'll go off and maybe I'll be an actor, or maybe I'll go into interior design, maybe I'll be a writer. And it took until I was applying for university to sort of come back. I was like, actually, you know what? I was right the first time. So yeah, I went to Bristol University and did a degree, integrated masters. So 4 years, bachelor's, masters combined, just get 1 degree at the end, and that was paleontology as my main subject. There's not many places you can do paleontology as a degree, but Bristol's one of them, and it's a fantastic place to do it.
Have you gone out in the field and dug anything up, or sieves, or architect, like the shake trays?
Very occasionally. It's there's a really big difference in culture and fieldwork between the North America and the UK and Europe. We don't have as much fieldwork, anywhere near as much in our degree. There was no required thing. We had 1 field trip, but it wasn't the sort of intense field work that you do over in the States. It was more, we go along the Jurassic coast and we do a bit of fossil hunting, break out the hammers, get some ammonites, and learn about the geology of that area, rather than we're going to go out and we're going to collect a triceratops. It's very different, but I've had the chance to do a bit. So when I was in my masters, we went out and investigated not the exact quarry that the specimens I was working on were collected from, because they were collected back from, I think, the 50s through to the 90s, and I got to have a look at a very similar one, so that was good. And since then, I've visited the States a couple of times, and we've done a bit of field work. So working on a Edmontosaurus quarry, doing a bit of prospecting, and collecting. Got called one day to go and collect a bit of dinosaur leg that was weathering out from a local farmer, like a very, very well-known family for having dinosaurs weather out of their land all the time. We went to go and collect what's probably a Daspletosaurus leg, but it hasn't been formally identified yet.
That is so cool. And what did you think of the fieldwork? Did you enjoy being out in the Wild West of the United States?
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, I'd really like to do some more of it in the future, and I think I'll probably get the opportunity to. But
Did,
yeah.
did you get to drive out here on our roads?
Uh, I drove one time while I was in America, and it was the day after I arrived in the country, so I was extremely jet lagged. One of the lovely women at the museum I was interning at said, "Oh, just take my car. You haven't got any groceries. You need to go and get some groceries. Go and drive down to the store." And so she gave me the keys to her car, jet lagged me, having never driven on the wrong side of the road. Uh, to a place that I wasn't entirely sure the location of, and I didn't have any maps or anything. Luckily, your roads are on a grid system, so it's very difficult to get lost. It's not like the UK at all. But I haven't driven out on any of the off-road roads, sort of bits and bobs. Only that one time. Yeah, it was a worry as well. I hadn't driven a car for a long time before I turned up as well. I think it'd been about half a year since I'd driven.
Oh,
Yeah.
so it was kind of cool.
Yeah, my background is from the Natural History Museum in London. And I mean, the building itself is a piece of history. It's incredible. Yeah.
I had to sign a radiation. When I visited, I had to sign a radiation waiver because of the specimens I was working on were deemed radioactive. Is that still the case down there? Do you still require people?
Only if you're working on those specimens, I imagine. I've never worked on anything radioactive, but there are a couple of cabinets I've seen in the collections that have big radiation warnings and saying, "Do not open. Contact this person if you want to open these cabinets." So yeah, there's definitely still some radioactive stuff in the dinosaur collection.
Because when you contrast that with most of the Morrison formation sauropods are radioactive at some level,
Yeah.
So there's no one even acknowledges it. So it was fascinating to me as a guy who had spent years playing with low levels. And then I walk over to the specimens and I'm like, wow, they take it. Maybe I should be rethinking how serious we don't take it.
Yeah, I definitely have from doing some work in America and then also working in the prep lab in the Natural History Museum in London. I'd say there's a bit of a difference. I like, for example, I would just go and they're like, "Oh, you need to be wearing a mask to do that." So, oh okay. I guess I'll put that on.
So talk to us about Dawn Dinos. You mentioned it earlier.
Yeah, so the name comes from the fact that everything we're studying is in the Triassic, which is the dawn of the dinosaurs, the age that gave rise to dinosaurs, the very first ones that we see. And this is a really turbulent time in Earth's history. It's coming off the back of the Permian-Triassic extinction, which is the largest extinction in the history of life. Around 95% of species were just wiped out. So coming out of this really barren thing. And when this happens in nature, we get like big wipeout. We often see these big radiation events, and that's what we see with Archosaurs. So Archosaurs come onto the stage in a really big way in the Triassic. But it doesn't start out with dinosaurs being the dominant group. It's more pseudosuchians and other Archosaurs that are the main contenders in the Triassic. So what we want to see is why they declined, but dinosaurs really took off at the very end of the Triassic and in the Jurassic. That dawn of the dinosaurs.
That's awesome. That is so fun. And in the last decade, heck, in the last 3 years, the origins of dinosaurs have effectively been rewritten. We keep pushing them back deeper and deeper in time. The characters that I used to hang my hat on 20 years ago, 30 years ago, most of them turn out to be plesiomorphic or of limited utility or convergent evolution. It seems like all I can hang my hat on now is the open acetabulum. Everything else, even the traditional 3 sacral fused, but then Saturnalia comes up with 2. I said, oh, are you kidding me? That's a go-to character. And now it's not. So as I love, because it's an area that I just get my popcorn out. I've completely accepted the fact that everything I was taught, everything that I thought I knew to be true is arguably going to be changed heavily. I don't want to say false because it's research. We search
Yeah.
again. That's the whole thing we do is we go back and look. But it is interesting to see the beginnings being written. And it's off these scrappy, usually tough to get to locales with rough material. There's nothing easy about this time period. It's way back in time, and it's in geopolitically unstable places at times. And my hat's off to you and all of those individuals that are doing that work at the beginnings, because it will really help us understand how did they supplant the pseudosuchians, which seemed to just be, they were everywhere. They were climbing in trees. They were running fast. They were big. They were, how did they lose it? And then the mammals were...
Of course, there's a lot of convergence between dinosaurs and pseudosuchians. So, like one of the characters that you mentioned, it was thought that dinosaurs had this upright stance and pseudosuchians were more sprawling, but that's not the case now. We've got things like Poposaurus, which basically looks like a theropod dinosaur. If you were to just glance at it, you go, yeah, it's a theropod. It's got this upright bipedal stance, so walking on two legs. And it's got that erect posture. And you get things like Etosaurs, which are ankylosaurs before ankylosaurs were a thing. It's really, really interesting studying these animals and looking at their similarities and differences.
Does the ankle still hold true? The crurotarsial, the ankle, the hinge?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the ankle holds up for everything that I've worked on, definitely.
Well, I'm going to stay with it for now because it makes me feel a little good that some of the things that I have observed still hold true. But I'm a sauropod guy, so we're a totally different, pretty much big columns.
Big columns.
Very, very structurally sound beasts. So as you came through the paleo ranks and you worked through and you're out in the museums, do you work on outreach as well? Do you interact with the public in any of the roles that you're in?
Yeah. So I've done a fair bit of outreach. I started at Bristol University with the Bristol Dinosaur Project, which is a really cool outreach project. We'd go into schools and teach them about dinosaurs. In Bristol, they do have a dinosaur called Thecodontosaurus, which was discovered in the city. And it was I want to say, fourth dinosaur ever discovered. So after Iguanodon, Megalosaurus, and Hylaeosaurus, yeah.
That'd be a great trivia question. What was the fourth named dinosaur? Yeah. Everybody knows the first three, but the fourth, I like it. So does it mean socket tooth lizard?
Yeah, it does. But this was another small sauropodomorph dinosaur. Again from the Triassic, and closely related to Pantidraco, the one that came up in my master's project. We go into schools, do talks and things, do workshops with kids. That was my first sort of real experience with outreach. Since then, I've done workshops with guides. I did one, and probably the main thing that I do now is my Instagram, where I do a lot of short posts, pictures, SciComm in that capacity, which I really enjoy, and hopefully people enjoy it as well. I have a lot of fun doing that.
I know I've definitely enjoyed watching your posts and reading them. And I can tell you that when we featured you on our site, the response, the direct messages, not only the public messages, but the DMs on the Facebook and the Instagram side were tremendous. There was a number of fathers and mothers that came forward and said, thank you so much. I know some of them are going to be joining the Paleo portals because they want to, if you're able to speak there, they're very excited to have you as a role model for women paleontologists. And it's something I never even realized, that I started looking back, all the pictures are of guys digging things up. And now we have such wonderful, your science is first rate. And now you're inspirational. You're showing that it can be done by girls too. A lot of them said, my daughter is 10 and thank you so much for showing a woman doing paleontology. So you're doing a great job at that for sure.
Yeah, there's so many fantastic women doing paleontology these days, but I feel the media tends to still focus on the guys a lot of the time. So yeah, I guess we've just got to keep pushing, show what we can do, because there are so many women in paleontology doing fantastic work.
Do you have any advice for anyone any of the young people today, especially young women, but young men as well, that may be interested in becoming a paleontologist. And do you have any words you would want to share with them?
Putting yourself out there is really, really important. And it took me quite a long time to figure this out. I'm generally a very shy person, so it's quite a struggle to put myself out there. But once I did start asking about and getting involved with more things, more opportunities come up as you make these contacts. I had one point where I was working on the Etosaur paper that I did, where I knew I was going to America for the summer to intern, and I quit my job to have a little time to prepare, and then I realized I have all this free time, so I just emailed a bunch of people asking, have you got anything I could do, can I help with this, and they all got back to me and said yes. So it's really a case of putting yourself out there, but it did mean I ended up living in a hostel for a bit, working on 3 separate projects, and commuting to London from Bristol once a week, which is a 3-hour bus ride, which is fine, but yeah.
Be careful what you ask for, I guess, is one of
Yes.
the other sides of it.
Yeah, maybe another bit of advice is don't take on too much. Put yourself out there, but know when to stop.
So, Emily, you've done public outreach, but you also do some more formal public outreach, I believe.
I'm currently a writer for Eons, which is a fantastic channel on YouTube with PBS Eons. They do excellent videos on prehistoric life and paleontology and evolution and all kinds of interesting topics. Like I was a fan long before I was a writer, so it's a really good channel, and it's been really interesting to get to write for them and really exciting to do that. And I've also consulted and written for a couple of DK books for the publisher Dawn Kindersley, which is also incredible because these were the books that I was reading as a kid. Like the DK Eyewitness books defined my childhood, and now I'm writing and consulting for the same company, which is just fantastic. If little me could see me now.
Oh, what a great praise. That is so true. PBS Eons, how did you come across both those opportunities? Did they reach out to you based on your social media page, or how did you apply?
Yeah, so Eons I applied for. That was a very normal application, but I did include my social media in the application, and it was mentioned as being a good thing for me because I do these little informative posts, and they said they liked the way that I did that. So that was really cool. And then I gave them some sample pitches because as a writer, you're also pitching the episodes. So you're not given a topic, you think up the topic, which is really cool. And it's definitely a great thing because they need to have people who know their stuff, who know what's interesting and exciting to write about. And take that through to the episode with a lot of help from the editors. The editors are fantastic at Eons as well. And they really know how to sell a story, which is really great. DK, I did a very small project for them while I was in university. So one of the other students said that they'd been in contact, but they wanted a dinosaur person, and he was an invert guy, so dinosaurs weren't really his thing. And he said, here's this opportunity, does anyone want it? And I went, oh, I'd like to do that. So I did that, and then a few years later, they got back in contact with me on my Instagram, actually. They DM'd me saying, we have this other project. Would you like to consult on it? And I was like, yes, that sounds fantastic.
So cool. That is awesome. So I love how young you is now fast forwarded to and you are influencing the next generation. They're reading your items and reading your stories. So you are now putting a positive impact to the next gen already. That's so awesome.
It's crazy to think about, but yeah, it's brilliant if I can get kids interested in science, or even stories. That's also a really important thing. There's so much interesting stuff that I've had the opportunity to be involved with.
So thank you so much for taking the time to share what a wonderful adventures and the great work you're doing. It's absolutely fantastic. And we look forward to speaking with you again and getting more into your research. I can't wait.
Yeah, no problem. It's been really fun. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you kindly.
Adios.
Thanks.